attention. Welcome to the back to school edition of our Agents of Change series, presented by State Farm and SAD. As young people head back to school this fall, we want to make sure that both teens and their parents are equipped with the tips and knowledge they need to arrive home safely each day after classes and extracurricular activities conclude. We're thrilled to have an all-star panel here with us today. Please join me in welcoming our Agents of Change. First up from Arizona, we have Martin.
Hello, everybody.
Coming to us from California is Shabby.
Hi, everyone.
Natalie is here with us today from Michigan.
Hi.
Jennifer is here from New York.
Hello.
And last but not least, from Texas, we have Kay.
Hi.
Welcome, everyone. In this episode, we're discussing how to best navigate rural roads, particularly during the fall season. What are some top tips for young people to keep in mind as they drive in rural areas? Martin, what are your thoughts?
Well, first off, I don't think we can talk about driving in the fall months without addressing the reputation for an uptick in animal collisions. Growing population of deer and other animals combined with displacement of animal habitats have caused more dangers on the road. And basically, we were in the mountains of Utah, my wife and I, several years back, driving through the highway, and all the cars started hitting their brakes. You could see the brake smoke coming up in front of us, and cars were pulling to the right, and in front of me was a elk that had been hit by the car in front of me. He was dead on the road, and a woman on the side of the road had pulled over. She got out of her car, and the elk had jumped through her windshield. So right there in front of me was an obvious example of what we're talking about.
You know, actually, Martin, I am right there with you. I haven't had an experience like that, but these collisions, they truly can happen anywhere. You know, State Farm did a study in 2020, and they actually found that on average, drivers in the U.S., 1 out of 116 chance a collision is with an animal. So for teens learning to drive an animal encounter on the roadway, it's truly an experience they are most likely going to run into, particularly if they're driving at dawn or dusk. So an animal can run out on the road in an instant, making it truly impossible to predict when it can happen. So ABS, always be scanning on the road. That's so important. I know I haven't had a similar experience just like you did, Martin, but I have seen people who have swerved out of the way to not hit a running dog or a cat or any other animal that has come on the road in front of them, and they've actually caused another accident. So it's very important to know your surroundings at all times, no matter what time of year that you're driving.
I agree completely. And while it is not really a way to keep animals off the road, there are other ways to be proactive. Remain alert while driving and pay attention to deer crossing and other signs. When driving roads near woods or other water, take extra caution. If you see an animal, expect there to be more. I know being from Michigan, we go up north a lot and we have a lot of deer. Even actually down in Metro Detroit area, I've seen deer in my subdivision. So it's always important to keep it mindful, be mindful about it. I actually have a friend that was in a bad accident hitting a deer with his brand new vehicle and totaled it 2 years ago. Luckily he was safe, but you know, things like that happen all the time.
In Western New York, we have a lot of deer. We talk about deer accidents all the time at the office. One of our suggestions is to be very conscientious of looking where the deer come from. They usually cross the road in multiple numbers. If you do see an animal on the roadway, use your brakes as necessary. If you can avoid hitting the animal, reduce your speed, honk your horn, tap your brakes to warn the other drivers. If there are no other drivers behind you, brake hard, but don't swerve. Many serious accidents occur when drivers swerve to avoid striking an animal. While these collisions are more likely to happen from October through November, should be alert year-round. Dusk and dawn is the most common time for deer accidents in our area.
We've said it before, and I'll say it again. Wearing a seatbelt is the safest decision you can make. Not bucking up has potentially deadly consequences. In 2019, approximately 36,096 people died in crashes in the United States. 47% weren't wearing seatbelts. With the uncertainty of where and when an animal collision will occur, it's best to always wear seatbelts to protect yourself.
These are awesome tips for being proactive agents. However, we know that sometimes it is inevitable that an animal collision will occur. With that being said, what information do parents and their teens need to know about what to do if they do happen to hit an animal?
The first thing you want to do is pull your vehicle to a safe place. Pull over to the side of the road, turn on your hazard lights, warning other drivers if an animal is blocking the traffic. It could create a threat to other drivers on the road. Call the police, let them know where you're at, and also start taking photos of the road, the surroundings, the damage to the collision for your own records and also possibly for police or insurance.
Definitely, Martin. I'd also like to add that you should never approach the animal that you hit. It's frightened or wounded, and it can use its legs and hooves to harm you. So don't attempt to move it. Call for help. Also, don't assume that your vehicle is safe to drive. Chances are, if you collided with a large animal like that, serious damage to the vehicle could have happened. So look for leaky fluids, look for loose parts, look for tire damage, broken lights, and any other damage that you can possibly see on your vehicle.
Such important information to know. For our rural folks, the fall months also bring harvest season. How can parents help their teens safely share the road with farm vehicles or large trucks?
You may naturally feel safe and relaxed when cruising rural areas, but it's important to still remain vigilant. Parents need to educate their children to take steps when tractors and other farm vehicles are in the area. So when the time comes, they can implement that knowledge and perform safely. To start, drive slow and when you see a farm vehicle, and stay safe distance behind them, typically around 50 feet. When there's an opportunity to pass safely, do so.
Natalie, I agree. Give them some distance, but always be on the lookout too for hand gestures and lights signaling that the drivers of farm vehicles intend to turn. Tall crops can create blind corners. Farm vehicles can enter roadways from unmarked access drives on the field at any given time. Always take a second look before you pull into an intersection or make a pass to move. Just be cautious of the increased activity of farm vehicles in the fall time.
We've all heard the saying, patience is a virtue. The timing and placement of farm vehicles on the roadway can test a driver's patience, especially if they have somewhere they have to be. However, it's always best to remain cool, calm, and collected when you encounter a tractor or other farm vehicle, and wait for a safe passing zone that is clear for oncoming traffic.
As always, panelists, you've given us so much to think about today. As we wrap up, I'd be curious, what's one key takeaway that you would like for teens to keep in mind as they navigate rural roads?
Well, myself, I have spoken to many students in driver education classes, and usually when I do talk to them, the first thing I talk to them about is I ask them to raise their hand for all of those who are participating in musical instruments, singing, basketball, swimming, whatever it is that they practice on a daily basis. And I give them the impression that that's what driving is all about. You have to practice. Every time you're out there, you have to practice to make it second nature. And also, the tip I give them is the driver is the boss. The driver is the one that determines for everyone to put on safety belts, for everyone to turn down the radio, to pick a co-pilot on a long trip that will sit next to them and help them with the driving skills. And that's basically the quick tips that I give in the driver education classes.
That's wonderful. And Martin, not to piggyback off of you, but I definitely 100% agree with you. One thing I can tell you guys is this: even if you're in your car and the road looks completely safe to drive on, it doesn't mean that black ice isn't there. Buckle up your safety belts. Make sure that when you are driving your car, everybody else as your passengers, they rely on you and your alertness. So make sure you're paying attention, not just to the vehicles around you or animals that may come in front of you, but also for the road that's ahead of you too.
And my pro tip is wear your seatbelt. I know that we'd mentioned earlier that in rural areas, you're more relaxed with your driving and you don't think it's as important, but it is so important. I've personally been in 2 accidents in my life, one worse than the other, but had I not worn my seatbelt, I may have ended up in the hospital or worse. I also think it's very important that safe following distance that was mentioned earlier. up north or down in the city is always so important, because if somebody has to stop quickly, you don't want to be the one rear-ending them.
I agree, Natalie. One of my favorite fall tips is regarding wet leaves. Wet leaves can be as slippery as ice. I've shared that with many drivers over the years and also my own children. I really think that we need to slow down when the leaves are wet and cross the roadway.
So I'd like to give like 4 driving experiences your teens would need. Graduated driving laws and driving curfews all help to give the drivers limits, but there is no substitute for diverse time behind the wheel. Experience in different weather patterns, like bad weather, paying attention to changing lights, different traffic and road types, as well as new passengers and diverse vehicles.
These are great tips all around, agents. I again want to thank our esteemed panel here from State Farm and, of course, you, Sad Nation, our followers, for helping us share the rules of the road as teens head back to school this fall. That's all the time we have for now. Be safe every trip, every time.